and welcome to yet another episode of On the Grid Podcast, Season 3, Episode 29. We are reviewing the Italian Grand Prix that took place last weekend at Monza. I'm your host, Adrian, as per usual. I'm joined by my right-hand man, Ethan Evans, my co-host. Ethan, first and foremost, how are you? How did you enjoy the Italian Grand Prix? A lot of action. It was a fantastic spectacle, to be fair.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I think it's quite possibly the best race of the season. There was a lot of overtaking, a lot of drama throughout. Yeah, it was just a really enjoyable race.
And obviously, this race is the last race as we head into a week break before we go to Singapore you'll be likely hearing this episode on the Thursday evening. So in a week and a bit's time, we'll be in Singapore, and you'll obviously hear us preview the Singapore Grand Prix before then. But let's kick things off with Q1. Obviously, at Monza, at the Italian Grand Prix, it was the same format as in Hungary. So Q1 on hards, Q2 on mediums, and Q3 on soft tyres. Ethan, before we delve into Q1, Q2, and Q3, what have you made of this sort of format being trialled by the F1? Do you see it being a regular thing? Because I think it's kind of keeping the pack a little bit closer together and giving us a bit more drama in qualifying before the race.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, isn't it? It's very different to what we've had before. I don't dislike it, though, to be fair. I think it adds a little bit more tension because you see that, you get some cars may work really well with the hards and some cars maybe not so well with the softs. So you get a bit more jeopardy, a bit more suspense up all the way up until Q3. You usually do see the best cars come out on top, but, there's a little bit more of an unknown going into it. And, it saves those extra pairs of tyres, which the FIA are very conscious about. So I think it's here to stay.
I definitely agree. I'm happy to see this format stay, as would be Alex Albon, who finished second in Q1. So the top three of Q1 was Max Verstappen with a 121.573, Albon a tenth back, and then Charles Leclerc in third, approximately 2 tenths back. Let's begin with Alex Albon. Williams have bought their rear wing that is suited to a high-speed circuit, and wow, did it deliver.
Yeah, it becomes a bit of a customary at this point, doesn't it? We always look forward to the races such as Monza as a potential stage where you could see a lot of points go Williams' way. And, Alex Albon was fantastic all throughout qualifying, obviously topped the timing sheets in Q1, and it was another great performance from him.
I don't believe he topped it. I think he came second.
Oh, my apologies.
To Verstappen. Obviously to Max Verstappen. Who else would have topped it?
That's essentially first at this point, isn't it, though? It's essentially first.
Yeah. We'll take it. But looking at the bottom five, Guan Yu Zhou, both Alpines of Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon, the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, and the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Let's not bother talking about Lance Stroll because that guy is in a world of his own. He may as well retire to play tennis already mid-season. Kevin Magnussen, once again, a little bit of a poor qualifying, but we're kind of used to seeing K-Mag being knocked out in Q1. But the real three shocks for me, Guan Yu Zhou, usually a decent qualifier, and the two Alpines of Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. Let's begin with the two Alpines first. Simply did not have a pace. What were your thoughts on Alpine? I think they are looking to be in a little bit of struggle town at the moment.
Yeah, very strange to see Alpine that far down. Both cars as well knocked out in qualifying. I know Ocon went over some gravel or something which may have damaged his floor, but didn't expect that going into qualifying. I tell you that. Alpine are usually very consistent. They got a podium last weekend, it was a big shock. That was a big shock of qualifying, I thought.
And then also Guan Yu Zhou being knocked out in Q1. Valtteri Bottas managed to qualify for Q2, finishing Q2 and 14th, which we'll get onto in a minute. But we're usually expecting to see Guan Yu Zhou in Q2 instead of Valtteri Bottas. Do you think that maybe VB has kind of stepped on the gas a little bit ahead of the second half of the season and been like, right, I'm a more experienced teammate here. I need to get my foot down because my less experienced teammate is kind of clawing away from me a little bit.
Well, yeah, but going into this weekend, Valtteri Bottas is ahead of Zhou in the Drivers' Championship. I think it seems to flip on a race by race basis between those two. Maybe it's just a bit of preferences when it comes to the circuits. Maybe Monza's a little bit of a weak circuit for Zhou, or he couldn't quite get the right setup. But it's probably one of the closest driver pairings on the grid, which we wouldn't have said, when Zhou joined F1.
Into Q2, the top three, Max Verstappen on the medium tyres, had setting a 120.937, I believe it was, with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz closely followed in second and third. The top three only split by just over half a tenth. Do you think in Q2 it showed that Ferrari are here to battle the Red Bulls for the top spot? Because in Q2 and Q3 and in the race, Ferrari's just simply turned it on with their pace.
Yeah, it was a bit of a
Now let's talk about P11 man instead of P12 man. Liam Lawson gaining a place in his second race in Formula One. I was going to give him a 7, but I think I'll boost it to a 7.5, knowing that Oscar Piastri did in fact finish 12th and not 11th. Great second race at AlphaTauri. Obviously a Q2 appearance and not far away from scoring points in his second race, I believe. I mean, he was 6 seconds off Valtteri Bottas in the end, but nevertheless, we know how troubled times are at AlphaTauri, and we know how that car performs. And to finish 11th, credit to him, 7.5 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, I gave him an 8. I thought it was a fantastic performance from Liam Lawson. He deserved that P11. Obviously, he got bumped up one, so essentially he finished where he started because of obviously Tsunoda not starting. But yeah, a good performance from him. Yeah, what more can you say? He's strengthening his claim for a full-time seat. He's at least got one more race, so we'll have to wait and see how it develops. But yeah, great performance.
On to Logan Sargent, who started 15th, qualified 15th, finished 13th in the race. Another Q2 appearance, but I think he was quite anonymous. I don't think he was. I don't think he was in the limelight like his teammate was, up battling for 6th. I gave Logan Sargent a 6.5 out of 10. I don't think I could have given him the same as Piastri, and I don't think I could have given him a better than Lawson due to those two performances. So yeah, I settled with a 6.5.
Yeah, I gave him a 7, maybe a bit nicely. He did get that penalty towards the end, but I thought it was a solid performance. He was on the fringes of points. I think it's almost reminiscent of a bit of that George Russell situation, isn't it? In that sort of second to third season where he's putting in these great performances or putting in these better performances, and he's on the fringes, but he just can't quite get that push over the line, get him that first point. Maybe he needs a crazy race to get him those first points, and then he'll be all right and it'll really get going. But yeah, it's another decent performance. Not quite as good as Albon, but I don't think anybody expects that of him. So I gave him a 7 out of 10, yeah.
Didn't we have a crazy weekend in Australia?
Well, he did get punted off by De Vries at the end, didn't he, at the restart? So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for Australia when he got completely wiped out by Nick De Vries.
I was just waiting to throw that in there. Oh, it was perfect. 14th, Guan Yu Zhou. I've just written decent down in my notes. I don't think it was. It wasn't as good as Valtteri Bottas, of course, but it was okay. He made up 2 places from his qualifying position in 16th to finish 14th. Yeah, I gave him a 6. Just there. It was decent. It was okay.
I gave Zhou a 5. I thought it was a very quiet weekend from him. He was clearly the slower of the 2 Alfa Romeos. 14th isn't bad. But then if you take into account the fact that Tsunoda didn't start, that's essentially 15th. So he's only technically gained 1 position there, and it was a Haas. So, yeah, not too much to shout about at home from Guan Yu Zhou, but a decent result nonetheless.
On to Pierre Gasly, who finished 15th after qualifying 17th. A very, very poor weekend and one of struggles for Alpine. Obviously, one of them retired, one of them finished 15th and well outside the points. 4 out of 10 from me. I think it was just a bit of a dismal display from them.
Yeah, exactly that from me as well. I gave him a 4 out of 10 as well. From the highs of Zandvoort to the lows of Monza for Alpine, it really is. Got that podium last weekend, fantastic performance, and then on a track which is the complete opposite, which is high speed. With long straights, they just had nothing, no pace whatsoever, and yeah, I think they'll be glad there's only one Monza per year, Alpine. I think so. They'll, difficult weekend, but 4 out of 10. Gasly was the quicker of the 2.
On to Lance Stroll, the people's champ, as I'm going to call him. Qualified in 20th, finished in 16th, made up 4 places to be fair. The same as Valtteri Bottas did, in essence, from qualifying. But yeah, a 4 out of 10.
I don't think I'm being too harsh. I gave him a 2 out of 10. You say he made up 4 positions, which is the joint most, Sonoda didn't start the race, so there's one position. Ocon didn't finish the race, so there's another position. He's only overtaken the two Haas's. He's in the fifth quickest car. I know he's started right at the back, and Monza is a difficult track to overtake, which you would have thought by looking at it it wouldn't be, but it is. But what's he actually done? He's, whenever I was looking at the timing chart, whenever I glanced over to see it,
two cars. Two cars he's overtaken.
Two Haas's, and we know about their race pace. We'll get onto them in a minute. But whenever I looked at the timing chart, he was last or second to last. He done nothing all weekend. His teammates out here fighting for points, getting every last bit of performance out of the car that he can. He's almost finished sixth, Fernando Alonso. He's only, on another occasion he would have finished sixth, and you wouldn't have been surprised if Fernando finished sixth in that race. And yet Stroll's finished 16th after starting last. I can't give him any higher than a 2. I think 2's actually been a little bit nice. Awful performance. It's time to go.
As Nepenthes would like to say, 16th. Yeah, he did finish 16th. Let's wipe the two Haas's straight away off the bat. If I give Stroll a 4, I'm gonna drop one lower and give the two Haas's a 3. I've just written an awful race car. It just simply is a truck on a racetrack. It's Kevin Magnussen, bless him, tried to unlap himself when the front guys were battling, and you're thinking, what the hell is this guy doing trying to unlap himself? This might end in chaos. Luckily, it didn't. But yeah, 3 out of 10. Awful, dismal from the two Haas's. I mean, Nico Hülkenberg, fair play to him. He qualified 13th, but still, he finished second last. So yeah, 3 out of 10.
Well, I agree with you with Kevin Magnussen. The only time I can remember him actually being on screen was when the two Ferraris were fighting and he was just sat behind watching. That is probably the most screen time he's got this season, Kevin Magnussen. So yeah, 3 out of 10, I agree with that. However, I will just defend Nico Hülkenberg here a little bit. He started in 13th, I suppose he started in 13th. He got himself up to 10th, actually. He overtook Fernando Alonso at the start. He held him off for a few laps. He dropped back down to 11th. And then he was running sort of between 11th and 14th for a lot of the race. And then I don't know what happened in that final stint, but he dropped like a rock. Ended up finishing, as I said, 17th. But he was having a decent race up until that performance. I'm not sure if there was an issue. I don't quite know, but I do remember him seeing him on the fringes of the points, not too far off. But then he just dropped off right at the end and was never to be seen again. So yeah, I gave him a 5 out of 10, but purely because of the first half of the race and his qualifying performance.
On to our first and only retirement, as Yuki Tsunoda did not start the race. 1 out of 10 for Esteban Ocon. 18th, and then retired. And we picked up his retirement about 5 laps later. We didn't even know he retired. That's how poor his race was going. We didn't even know. Martin Brundle and David Croft didn't even know when he retired. It was Ted Kravitz that actually went on and said, "Yeah, Ocon's retired," and we didn't actually know what was happening with Ocon. It was just saying in pits, so we didn't know what the cause was. Anonymous retirement, awful in qualifying. Yeah, 1 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave him a 2 out of 10, but purely because he did get that damage in qualifying, so maybe he would have been a bit higher. But yeah, no, I really didn't notice either that he'd retired. I didn't notice it until about 10 laps later. So, what more can you say? I gave him a 2 out of 10, but terrible. A weekend to forget for Alpine.
And on to our did not start driver, Yuki Tsunoda. I believe this is the second race that he's not started in his Formula One career. I can't remember which one was his last. I'd have to do a bit of research onto that one, but I can't quite remember. Obviously, fantastic qualifying, engine failure, which kind of put a damper on that good qualifying. He could have been battling in close to the top 10, seeing that Liam Lawson finished 11th. So overall, I gave him a 5 out of 10. I don't think we could have criticised him too much regarding his race performance, as he didn't even start, but his quality performance was brilliant. So I'll balance it out. 5 out of 10.
I didn't give him a grade because I didn't give him a grade because he didn't start, and just to fill in that blank.
Quali
Based on
grade.
qualifying, I'll give him a 5 out of 10 as well. I'll match your grade. But yeah, just to fill in that blank, the other race he didn't start was at Monza, so that's two races out of the three occasions he's been at Monza, he hasn't started the race at. I heard that in commentary yesterday. It's a fun little stat that Yuki Tsunoda did not start more times at Monza than he's actually raced at Monza. So
Yuki Tsunoda Monza curse? Question mark.
Well, there we go. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I'll match your grade then. I'll give him a 5 out of 10 as well. But yeah, I didn't give him a grade.
That rounds off the episode. Let's look at the standings ahead of after the Italian Grand Prix. So Max Verstappen is a long way away in front on 334 points, with his teammate Sergio Perez in second on 219. Then follows quite closely is a battle between Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Fernando Alonso 170 points in third, and Lewis Hamilton in fourth on 164. Then follow the two Ferraris. Carlos Sainz pulling a little bit of a gap on Charles Leclerc in fifth. He has 117 compared to Charles Leclerc's 111. George Russell is the next man in the three-digit crew, as he's on 109 in seventh, with Lando Norris on 79 in eighth. Lance Stroll, would you believe it? He's in the top 10 with 47 points. And Pierre Gasly rounds off a top 10 with 37 points. Then follows a joint battle of 11th, with Oscar Piastri and Esteban Ocon being on joint points with 36. Alex Albon has 21 points. Nico Hulkenberg with 9. Bottas with 6. Zhou with 4. Tsunoda with 3. Magnussen with 2, and then the 4 drivers of Sergeant De Vries, who's no longer there, Liam Lawson and Daniel Ricciardo on 0 points. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull may as well wrap the title already. They're close to 600 points with 583. Mercedes is second with 273, a 45-point gap on Ferrari, who are third with 228 points. Aston Martin are fourth, overtaken by Ferrari this weekend. They are, I believe they are a couple of points behind Ferrari on 217. McLaren have slowly faded a little bit out that picture. They're on 113. Alpine in sixth with 73 points. Williams in seventh with 21. Haas on 11 points in eighth. Alfa Romeo with 10 points in ninth. And AlphaTauri round out the standings in 10th on 3 points. That was a mouthful. Can I have a breather? But yeah, that rounds off episode 29 of On The Grid Podcast. We'll be back next weekend, where we celebrate episode 30 of our podcast, and we'll be looking ahead of the Singapore Grand Prix. Thank you, Ethan, for joining me once again on this episode. Like I said, we'll be back next week. Thank you for interacting. Thank you for slating our Instagram reels. It's giving us the hunger that we need. But yeah, keep on liking, keep on doing all that good stuff, keep on viewing, keep on sharing. But like I say, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.